Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Henry. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Look, can I just say thank you very much. Look, all the warmth of that welcome I take as a response to the hard work of my whole shadow Treasury team, and I want to thank them as often the unsung heroes of my team. Peter Dowd is the Chief Secretary and MP from what he describes as the small fishing village of Bootle on Merseyside. Jonathan Reynolds, our missionary we send into the City of London to preach socialism. And Annalise Dodds, who's just brilliantly masterminding our programme to tackle tax avoidance and tax evasion. Annalise has found that magic money tree in the Cayman Islands, and she's digging it up and bringing it here. And Clive Lewis, always getting into scrape after scrape, impressing through our radical green agenda with courage and vigour. And also, I want to thank Lynn Brown. Lynn's the conscience of our party in ensuring everything we do will secure social justice and equality for all that need it. Finally, my parliamentary private secretary, Thelma Walker, she brings her skills as a former head teacher to ensure we all do our homework and we deliver on every occasion. Thanks, Thelma, for all that you do. I want to pay tribute to others as well. I want to pay tribute to the GMB workers who work for ASDA, who are being threatened with the sack for Christmas if they don't sign up for the worst contract. Here they are. Solidarity. I just say this, comrades, we'll support you all the way in standing up to these bullies. We'll support you all the way. And let me say to Dave Ward as well, I heard his speech earlier, Dave from the CWU. Look, as far as I'm concerned, the role of a Labour MP is, yes, to support in Parliament, but also on the picket line. So whether it's in Parliament or on the picket line, Dave, we will be with you in this campaign. I want to thank a friend of mine. He's a mate who almost accidentally became the leader of the Labour Party. And I just want to say this, he's given us our team 100% support. And what makes me so proud of him is that, no matter what the smears and personal attacks by the gutter press, he always responds and embodies the kinder, gentler politics he advocates. And I'm so proud of Jeremy Corbyn. Look, your singing's improving. Not much, but improving. Let me just say, cut it out. My fear, though, at the moment is that, and it's a genuine fear, My fear is that as a result of the behaviour, the language and the cynical opportunism of some politicians on the right, I think we've entered a period of profound insecurity and risk to our democratic system. I don't say this lightly. We've seen before in our history what kind of forces can be unleashed by politicians who have a complete disregard for the truth in their ruthless pursuit of power for power's sake. Politicians who attack the very institutions and practices, no matter how flawed they are, the institutions and practices that uphold our democracy. They attack Parliament, the courts, the rule of law. And I tell you, the best antidote to those who attack our democratic rules and institutions is more democracy itself. That's why we're right. We're right in our aim to trust the people in having the final say on Brexit, a deal or remain. We are right to go back and trust the people. Some of you will know I've said that I'll campaign for Remain, but let me make it absolutely clear. I profoundly respect those who support a genuine alternative. And I agree we need to root through this that Jeremy is offering to ensure that we bring our party and country together again. In our debates today, I want us to demonstrate the respect we show each other and how we can bring our party together, and just how, as a result of that, we can also bring the country back together again. I warn those who would revoke Article 50 without a democratic mandate. Just ask yourselves what message that sends to our people. An old professor of mine, Bernard Crick, was once asked to define socialism in one sentence, and he said, "Socialism is the achievement of equality through democracy." We can't say to people, Labour wants you to share in the running of your workplace, your community and your environment, but we don't trust you to have the final say over Brexit. I believe nothing would do more to undermine their faith in democracy in all its forms. We'd run the risk of losing the confidence we've built up in people in using democracy, yes, to change the world. The blossoming of hope and radical thought that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years. The potential to turn that radicalism and that hope into transforming lives, increasing fulfilment and happiness for the many. That's what we're about. Equality through democracy, the definition of socialism. The transforming lives means, I suppose, before everything else, yes, having enough to get by, but not just to scrape by, also to live a rich and fulfilling life. And millions today, after 9 years of Tory austerity, millions today know how hard it is to do that, just worrying about getting to the end of the month. So transforming people's lives means ending the modern evil of in-work poverty. Now, Labour has traditionally been committed to full employment. We've always believed that getting a job should mean you're lifted out of poverty. You lift yourself out of poverty. But under the Tories, the link between work and escaping poverty has been broken. So I commit today that within the first term of office, Labour will end in-work poverty in this country. End it. End it. That means completely transforming the way our economy works. will restore full trade union rights back in this country once again. Once again. We'll fulfill the promise of our leader that those workplace rights will apply from day one of employment. We'll roll out collective bargaining to enable workers to get their fair share of what they produce. And yes, we'll bring in a real living wage of at least £10 an hour. We'll end the barbaric rollout of universal credit. We'll cap rents, and we'll build 1 million new homes that our people need. We want to build those 1 million new affordable homes so young people in particular aren't pouring away thousands of pounds from their wages to rip off landlords exploiting them as a result of the current housing shortage brought about by the Tories. And yes, work isn't just about wages. It's about freedom from drudgery, having dignity and respect and a voice in the workplace. What does that mean? It means a strong trade union movement and collective bargaining, but also in the new public services we're creating, it means management by workers and service using themselves rather than some remote bureaucrats in Whitehall. Self-management by workers. It also means, yes, a tenth of shares being owned by those workers themselves. It means our commitment to doubling the size of our cooperative sector and going further, I hope, in our ambitions. But our commitment to every worker, therefore, is that wherever you work, you will have a stake and you will have a say in the future of your working environment, the company and firm you work for, and yes, how you're treated at work. But it's not just about a fulfilling life at work. I've always believed we should work to live, not live to work. And so, look at the history of this. In the 1860s, people worked a 65-hour week. And thanks to past Labour governments, but actually mainly thanks to the trade union movement, by the 1970s, the average working week had been reduced to 43 hours. As society got richer, we could spend fewer hours at work. But in recent decades, progress has stalled. People in our country work some of the longest hours in Europe. And since the 1980s, the link between increasing productivity and expanded free time has been broken. It's time to put that right. So I can tell you today that the next Labour government will reduce the average full-time working week to 32 hours within the next decade. It will be a shorter working week with no loss of pay. As a first step, and this has been a real bugbear of some of us, as a first step, we'll end the opt-out from the European Working Time Directive. Yes, and we'll roll out sectoral collective bargaining. We'll include negotiations over working hours within that. We'll require working hours to be included in legally binding sectoral agreements between employers and trade unions. This will allow the unions and employers to decide how best to reduce hours for their particular sector. And we'll set up a working time commission with the power to recommend to government on increasing statutory leave entitlements as quickly as possible without increasing unemployment. But you know, while millions are exhausted from overwork, there are too many others who can't get the working hours they need. So let's make it clear, absolutely clear. We'll also ban zero-hour contracts to make sure every employee, we will make sure, we will make sure every employee has a guaranteed number of hours a week. And you know, I told this story at the TUC, I think last year. My dad was on the Liverpool docks, and his generation were those dockers who used to stand at the side of the street and then get picked by a ganger to see whether or not they got work that day or not. And if they weren't picked, they didn't get work. Zero-hour contracts are the same level as exploitation as my father and grandfather experienced in the 1930s. And you know, when people work those hours, our real living wage will make sure that people earn enough to live on. But it's not just enough to give people power over their working lives. We believe in extending democracy across the board. And we know one of the most urgent tasks that we face when we go into government will be to rebuild local democracy. Rebuild those local council services decimated by the Conservatives and, yes, the Lib Dems as well when they were in government. My generation inherited a treasure of public parks, libraries, swimming pools and leisure centres, free or affordable for all. But you know, in too many cases now they're gone. They've been privatised, or they've priced out the families they were built for. These public assets meant a better life for millions of us. And they were part of the welfare state that our movement, our Labour governments fought for and built, providing free at the point of use the things that made life worth living. I believe we shouldn't limit our ambition to simply repairing the damage caused by 9 years of Tory cuts. We've got to go further. Got to go further. So today I'm launching a document on universal basic services. It lays out our belief that everyone has a right to a good life, that the state has a responsibility to make good on that right by providing public services free at the point of use. These services are part of our shared experiences that are too important to be left to the market, whether a family can afford them or not, or whether they receive them or not. As socialists, let's be clear. Let's make it absolutely clear to everyone. We believe that people have the right to education, health, a home and a decent environment, and yes, access to culture and leisure. I fervently believe the right to dignity in retirement is part of that right to health. Older people have the right to that dignity at every stage of their lives. And you know as well as I do, the truth is our social care system at the moment is a national scandal. There's been nearly £8 billion taken from council budgets for social care since 2010. The result is 1 million people not getting the care that they need. Immense scale of human suffering and stress placed upon them and their families. More than 5 million unpaid carers, most of them women, looking after loved ones. And overworked, underpaid care workers only being allowed 10-minute visits to those they care for because the current system won't pay for more. A report last week demonstrated how, at the same time, many of the big care providers have developed highly complex corporate structures. Yes, and involving offshore tax havens, sucking even more money out of the system. So I can announce today, after years of campaigning by trade unions and carers, as the first building block in our new National Care Service, the next Labour government will introduce personal care, free at the point of use in England. It will be funded. It will be funded not through Conservatives' gimmicky insurance schemes, but like the NHS and other essentials, it will be funded through a fair taxation system where everybody pays their way. We're publishing the first steps of our National Care Service vision today, investing in the workforce and ensuring that those care workers they're employed on local authority rates of pay, working conditions and training to deliver the high-quality care as Unison and the GMB have advocated for so long. Over time, we'll bring those services back into public ownership and democratic control. We'll ensure that local councils have the necessary resources after years of savage cuts, building up the capacity in local government for both care homes and domiciliary care, back under public democratic control. And as a start, we'll require all providers, public, private or charitable, to adhere to strict criteria on ethical standards. Because I believe, and I believe you share this belief, there's nothing more important than dignity in retirement for those who built our country and given younger generations the world we live in today. It is a debt of honour. I want to say a personal thank you to the hard work and leadership that Barbara Keeley has shown in driving forward the policy on this issue over years so that we can achieve the breakthrough today. Barbara Keeley. Of course, as you know, in Scotland, the government has already introduced free personal care. A Labour government introduced free personal care. So when we spend the billions needed to guarantee free personal care in England, there actually will be billions more for First Minister Richard Leonard when he takes office in 2021. A Labour government making millions of lives better across the UK thanks to our transformative policies in Westminster, but also through the new resources for the Scottish and Welsh governments as we roll out our transformative policies. But you know, of all the universal rights that we hold dear, I suppose nothing is more important than the right to survival, the survival of our planet. I believe when historians write about 2019, the most important political event so far has not been the replacement of one useless Tory Prime Minister with another one. It's a consistent pattern. It's been the emergence of climate change as the most important political question of the day. Nobody has done more in Parliament than my colleagues Sue Hayman and Rebecca Long-Bailey to pave the way for Parliament declaring a climate emergency this year. And outside Parliament, I want to pay tribute, just the exhilaration of it. I want to pay tribute to the school strikers and Extinction Rebellion. I've been so proud. I've been so proud to march and demonstrate alongside them. Despite the climactic conditions, they always seem to choose a day when it's raining. They've shamed older generations of politicians into taking climate change seriously and with the urgency it needs. Now it's essential that the Labour movement continues to join in solidarity with those young people to help lead that fight. And for my part, I will make sure the Treasury puts in whatever resources are necessary to meet our climate change obligations, whatever is necessary. We will have, as you know, we're setting up a sustainable investment board coordinating the Treasury, the Business Department and the Bank of England. £250 billion of green government investment in our National Transformation Fund. £250 billion more of lending through our National Investment Bank, delivered at grassroots by regional development banks and our new Post Bank. And let me make this clear as well, while the Labour government will need to take the lead, yes, with state investment, we'll make whatever forms are necessary to ensure the finance sector isn't pushing the other way by investing in carbon-intensive sectors for the future. That means billions more raised through green bonds and support for a European Green New Deal programme so that we can bring forward significantly that 2050 date. We're mobilising financial resources on a scale not seen since the post-war reconstruction to achieve the twin goals of a sustainable future and a better today. In July, at our inaugural International Social Forum, I reiterated our support for socialist internationalism. We recognise that the first industrial revolution meant Britain was the first major contributor to climate change, something that left a lasting legacy for the Global South. And to begin making some reparations for our colonial past, I pledge we will provide the citizens of the Global South free or cheap access to the green technologies that we develop as part of our green industrial revolution. It is only just. And we'll work with other countries and social movements across the globe to reform the major international bodies, to enable them to coordinate the global response to climate change. There's an old trade union saying, the cause of Labour is the hope of the world. Here in Britain, it's the Labour Party that's carrying that hope into this century. The hope of a world where the riches of our planet are shared. The hope of the world with the chance for everyone to realise their full potential. And we know, look, we know we won't build that world overnight. And let nobody tell you it will be easy or that it won't face enormous resistance. I tell you this, I believe our time is coming. Time to start work on that historic mission, to lay the foundations of a new world. And you know, sometime in the future, when they ask you, where were you when our people were left to sleep on the streets? When families queued at food banks to survive? When the Tories tried to sell our country out to Trump? When climate change threatened our planet and our very existence? I want you to be able to say, I built the homes and the public services our people needed. I made I want you to be able to say, I made sure everyone was fed and cared for, with nobody forced to endure poverty. I want you to be able to say, I saved the planet by tackling climate change. I helped lay the foundations of that new society, foundations so deeply rooted that no Tory in the future can ever break them up. And when they ask you, how did you do that? You can tell them, I supported Labour. I joined Labour. I voted for Jeremy Corbyn. I elected a Labour government. That's how. Solidarity.